Every time I take a break, the game be so boring. Pretty like Naomi, Cassie plus Lauren. Spitting like Wheezy, Foxy plus Lauren. Boy like the Ramsey, now that's...
Hey, my immaculate people. That's what I'm gonna start calling y'all. Today, I'm gonna do a little voiceover thing. And I'm just doing my hair, so I'm gonna show y'all what I'm doing. I'm doing like a little twist. Right now, I just started, y'all. I just parted. I can't part. But I'm doing a little twist. I'm gonna dry them. But, yeah. So, love y'all, and we're gonna get into this video. So, as y'all can see here, I'm applying some conditioner, leave-in conditioner, and some mousse. And I just twist my hair like so. What I'm doing right here is I'm braiding on my scalp first, and then I'm going down and twisting. And I'm braiding because it helps my hair last longer. So now that you guys know what I'm doing, I'm going to be reading a few stories that I found off the internet. And yeah, this story is called It Wasn't a Little Girl. I was camping with my husband and his family at a small remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group and another group of 6 people in the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, and telling stories, when we all heard that what sounded like a little girl yelling for help. Neither group had children with them, but we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area we heard the noises from together. Now, let me cut that off right there. Y'all are crazy. No way I'm going to go search in the middle of the night in the woods to see if I hear a little girl. Continuing. There was a field behind our campsite, and we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, making the noises. We all agreed this thing looked maybe about 6 feet tall, skinny, and white as it can be. We made our way close to investigate, but whatever it was that we saw started backing off as we got closer and disappeared into the trees. All night we continued to hear a little girl calling for help as we tried to sleep. So, before we get into the next story, I'm right here in this section. I'm blow drying my hair so it doesn't shrink, and I'm just pulling it and letting it dry. The reason that I'm doing this now is because I'm going to head to bed because it's like 12 o'clock in the morning and I just came from work and I was super tired. So I dried my hair so it wouldn't be horrible when I woke up in the morning. I changed from my work shirt to my robe because this is the next morning. Let's get into our next story. When I was 37, I went to my high school reunion. I flew into the nearest airport and rented a car. The distance was about 35 miles through a very rural and almost abandoned part of the country. About 3 miles outside of town, I see someone on the side of the road flagging me down. It turned out that it was one of the guys I had attended school with, Jim. Gets in the car and we start talking. I had not seen him in 20 years, but he still looked the same, maybe a little older. We got to town and I asked him if he wants to come to VFW and have a drink. He says, no, just take me home. Jim's parents had only lived a few blocks from my grandmother's house, and I turned in that direction, but he said to take him to the outskirts of town. There was a mobile home park out there, and I figured that is where he lived. When we reached the end of the turn off, he said, just drop me here. It was good to see you again. Then he walks off into the night. I go to the VFW, met some of my old classmates. We start to talk. As we start talking about who was coming to the reunion, I mentioned that I had just picked up Jim 3 miles east of town and had dropped him off. Everyone gets quiet. Even the guy singing karaoke stops and lays down the mic. My cousin goes to white as a new t-shirt. Barb, Jim died on the curb 8 years ago. Rode his car. We were all at his funeral. I was told. I started to feel really dizzy, and I went out to the car to take some deep breaths. There's on this seat the local newspaper printed 8 years previous, containing Jim's obituary. I still have the paper. The next story is called The Death March. My dad used to work as a correction officer at a rural prison. He drove the perimeter of the property for his entire shift, where he would check empty buildings for runaway inmates. It was generally a boring job. One night, my dad was parked on a hill reading a magazine when he started to feel a thumping in his body. He described it as the feeling you get when speakers are playing a song with really heavy bass. He put the magazine down and checked his rearview mirror, where he saw someone outside the truck. He grabbed his pistol and jumped out the truck with his weapon drawn. Outside the truck, he realized it was a procession of Native Americans walking through the truck and directly through his seat, only to disappear at the exact spot he was sitting. He said it was clear that they were ghosts because many of them appeared injured. This went on for a few seconds, and then the whole procession disappeared. He called the other perimeter guy on his walkie-talkie trying to explain. The other guy almost immediately stopped communicating. Turns out the other guy had seen this happen before, but didn't believe in ghosts, so he wouldn't talk about it. The Demon's Room. I worked as a forensic nurse in a hospital's lockup unit. We had one older lady who swore she was being haunted and abused by a demon she would call Tiberius. So many crazy things happened while she was on the unit. We'd go into the room, do a normal care, leave, and seconds later she'd start screaming bloody murder. We'd run to the room to find her looking like she'd been in a fight with a boxing champ. Bloody lip, black eye, marks all over her body. No one ever saw her doing this except to herself. Things would get moved around the room by themselves. At one point, she was in the protective restraints because the doctor thought she was hurting herself. There was no way she could have moved or done anything to herself while in these restraints, but new marks would always appear on her tray. Cart would be across the room. The room was secure, so there was no way someone else was doing this. When we asked her questions, she'd just say it was Tiberius. After she was discharged, we always had trouble with that room. If there was going to be a rapid response or code, it happened in that room. One night, a guard reported lights blinking on and off. It was that room. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and the stories. There's not my stories. I love you guys, Immaculate Babes, and we are out.